Chers auditeurs,
Dear listeners,
bonjour.
welcome to Comme d'Archi Podcast Season 5.
Saison 5, dans le monde fascinant des architectes.
And in the architectural projects.
Je suis Anne-Charlotte Deponte, passionnée d'architecture et docteur des universités en histoire de l'archi.
I am one of the spokespersons of Anne-Charlotte, who is a PhD in architecture history.
Merci.
Thank you
D'être avec moi aujourd'hui.
to be with us today.
Et
And
maintenant,
now,
lundi en français, place au talent.
and Wednesday, let's talk projects. In English, of course.
Bienvenue dans Comme d'Archi.
Hello, dear listeners. This is Esther on behalf of Anne-Charlotte. Welcome to this Comme d'Archi podcast about the amazing work all over the world of the landscaper Frédéric-Charles Aillet and his office Sempervirens. This presentation is written by Frédéric-Charles Aillet himself. I create gardens and urban projects blended into nature, from concept to construction site monitoring in France and around the world. My botanical approach, based on indigenous formations, helps to strengthen biodiversity and limit the maintenance of landscaped areas, which gives extraordinary sustainability and freedom to the garden. I leave a lot of room for wild nature in my projects. These projects seek to reveal and enhance natural elements while preserving the ecosystem. The wind, whirlpools and venturi effects, plants sculpted and careened by the wind, at the seaside and at the top of a tower, the sun with reflection effects, masking effects of cast shadows, rain, the water cycle and its path. I like the picturesque, Hubert Robert, Piranesi. I am actually romantic. Piranesi for me is the highlighting of colossal architectures that are themselves subject to the destruction of time. Then there is a great deal of inventiveness on each project. In Japan, the garden of the French embassy makes a transition between nature and architecture through the rhythm of the glass facade, which is echoed in the green wall. The sculpture won the project against large agencies, with Tadao Endo as president of the jury. In Egypt, we recycle all the grey water from the university with plants. This creates a path from the source, which forms a sort of delta, to the Wadi Garden, which is lost in the sand. We use native dessert plants. Work done with Dominique Jacob and Benton McFarlane. With Jean-Michel Villemotte, the Park of the Four Elements of Cognac evokes the distillation of cognac with basins which reflect the sun on the facades and in the building. In Paris, we are creating a garden that filters the air along the ring road with a plant palette chosen for these hairy plants to capture fine particles. Library of plants, like a sculpture by Tingley, which comes to life when the water flows from tray to tray, animating this plant library, which allows you to drop off your plants when you go on vacation. Complete urban projects commissioned by Link City, Lionel Amand, and Simon D'Annunzio. It is important to have clients who believe in the work of the agency. But, returning to the Tokyo project, co-conceived with Raphaël Favori and Pierre Sarien. The Jardin de l'Ambassade de France project in Tokyo is directly in line with an approach that is, by definition, environmental and sustainable. This vertical garden reconciles Japanese moss gardens and formal gardens. The project arose from the need to manage a significant difference in level between the facade of the new building and the existing site, with a minimum footprint in order to preserve the very large existing trees. This topographical constraint led us to work on verticality, which seemed logical to us at the time, without wanting to create a wall. After observing Tokyo's shaded riverside natural environments, we came up with the idea of turning the wall into an ecosystem that would find its own equilibrium by bringing together all the necessary conditions for colonization by pioneer plants, notably mosses, bryophytes. Throughout the project, we worked to respect and reinforce Tokyo's natural biodiversity in order to preserve an original ecosystem. As few trees as possible were felled. The particular conditions in Japan, with its humid subtropical climate and strong seismic constraints, gave us the opportunity to design a wall that is unique in its constitution and its shotcrete construction process. The wall's operation remains extremely simple to ensure its durability. The surface cladding is also the result of detailed work on plant colonization conditions, which led us to establish a granulometry and pH implemented during the production of test prototypes. The aim is to create the right conditions for natural colonization. We let nature take its course. The architecture of the structure follows the rhythm of the building's facade, creating a transition between the embassy and nature. Climatic conditions allow for moderate, occasional watering. The water used comes from the storage of rainwater from the building in tanks located under the access ramp. Delivered in 2009, the green wall has never ceased to embellish over the years, despite the fact that this plant and mineral sculpture requires virtually no maintenance. The wall's appearance changes according to the season, with the mineral parts visible in winter and the wall entirely evergreen in summer. I regularly visit the embassy site, welcomed by members of the French embassy with whom I have forged close ties. In particular, tests were carried out in 2018 to implant moss on the concrete. Then, let's talk about the UFE in Cairo project. 13 hectares, 7,000 students. The French University of Egypt, UFE, is an Egyptian higher education institution, Alaya, inaugurated in 2002 and re-established in 2019 to expand its mission to research and position itself as a top-ranked university internationally. UFE welcomes English or French-speaking students who wish to pursue French higher education in Egypt, delivered in an Arabic-speaking environment that promotes cultural exchanges. The programs are offered in 7 majors: artificial intelligence and robotics, mechanical engineering, architecture, management, social and human sciences, information systems, data analysis, and applied foreign languages. Courses are available at the bachelor's undergraduate level, 3 years, and master's level, 2 years. Degrees from French partner universities are accredited in both France and Egypt, including institutions such as Paris 1 Panthéon-Sorbonne, Paris 3 Sorbonne Nouvelle, Sciences Po Grenoble, the University of Nantes, and more. The landscape concept of UFE. As with the Nile, which irrigates Egypt, it all starts with water. At the heart of the university, inside the courtyard of the Learning Center, we have created a biotechnological delta garden in the center that allows the recycling of grey water from the university to create more than 100 meter cubes of water every day. From this source, under a bioclimatic pergola, the water is dispersed and flows into several plant typologies of extraordinary gardens. The lush, flower-bearing and fruit-bearing gardens in the center of the site are planted in a lowered planting bed and wicking bed for the vegetable garden for controlled irrigation to limit water consumption. The alignments of endogenous trees accompany the main circulation areas by reinforcing the shade, the comfort of the site, and protecting the student parking lot. The natural gardens are carved into the earth, imitating the style of wadi and dune landscapes, which offer more than 12 outdoor amphitheaters protected by acacias, trachinias, and palm trees. The gardens of the new French university in Egypt reflect the new relationship between humans and their environment, which is also taught within the complex. Water filtration in each patio's gardens. The process of filtrating the grey water of the university was a major goal and issue for the success of the landscape project. With this idea, we decided to create in every patio's water ponds organized with filtration layers that will help grey water used on site to be cleaned and reused into the general water circuit. More than just an aesthetic and a symbolic composition, it's also a practical landscape. By using the wadi and the oasis vocabulary, we clean used water into the evocation of wild Egyptian identity. As the ancients found strategies to save water at all costs, as moderns, we are using nowadays landscape intelligence to serve the same goal. Save water and reusing it when it's possible. Transplantation. The indigenous desert gardens of Egyptian heritage biodiversity. The landscaping project of the new French University of Egypt is part of the objective of achieving an exemplary layout in terms of native Egyptian plants. This goal could minimize water consumption of plants and reinforce Egyptian native biodiversity that contributed to the scientific influence of the UFE. In order to ensure the sustainability of the development in this very particular context, we wish to set up a particular plant engineering protocol. Indeed, plants from plant nurseries do not have the genetic diversity of a natural formation and are not indigenous and adapted to the difficult conditions of the site. We therefore wish to carry out the plantations of the project partly or entirely from samples taken from similar and nearby sites which are required to host urbanization projects. As part of the landscaping of the future French University of Egypt, a local company will be responsible for collecting plant specimens from the entire construction site with the aim of reintegrating them into the green spaces. Transplantation involves extracting plant specimens of interest for the project, naturally present on the site, by uprooting them and then replanting them in landscaped areas. However, this final step cannot be carried out immediately as the construction site has not yet started. Therefore, while waiting for the landscaping of the future French University of Egypt to take place, the plants will be potted and stored on the plot located to the southeast of the site, near the current university premises. They will also undergo maintenance throughout the storage period. The superficial soil containing indigenous seeds will also be preserved for reuse in the gardens. Amphitheater. In order to minimize water consumption, the vegetation of the large amphitheater gardens will be planted with Egyptian xerophilic plants that consume little water. Species within xerophile plantations include plants that favor the pollination of the fruit trees. The proportions of the outdoor amphitheaters mirror those of ancient amphitheaters. Acoustics are enhanced by the natural reverberation of voices on the limestone, as well as on water mirror that provides natural air conditioning for the amphitheater during classes. The following quote from Vitruvius inspired the landscape concept. According to the rules of mathematics and methods of music, they managed to ensure that voices from the stage reach the ears of the audience more distinctly and pleasantly. By designing theaters based on the laws of science of harmony, the ancients increased the sound power of the voice. To conclude, Frédéric-Charles Aillet conducted a botanical exploration of natural reserves in the Egyptian desert, verifying hypotheses and creating the planting plan and designed for the garden project through constant dialogue with the architects Jacob and Mark Verlaine. Through the gardens of the university, he wanted to reflect the quality of teaching and also a new, more respectful and sustainable relationship between humanity and its environment. You know what? Frédéric-Charles Aillet invites you to come work at Sempervirens to bring your talent to the structure, to contribute to the preservation of biodiversity and the enchantment of the world, build new wonders of the world in the continuity of the pyramids, the gardens of Babylon, Mont Saint-Michel, the gardens of Versailles, of Vaux-le-Vicomte, a great ambition. Dear listeners, thank you for tuning in. See you next week, and until then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. Thanks to Julien Rebours, sound engineer, who is collaborating with us today. Don't forget to tune in to our previews on Instagram at Comme d'Archi Podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, don't hesitate to promote it by giving it 5 stars and a little comment on Apple Podcast or on your favorite podcast platform. And above all, subscribe to listen to all of our episodes for free. See you soon, and until then, take care of yourself.